Hello, Align, and welcome to another episode. There's a really important topic that I feel oftentimes we neglect to talk about. And oftentimes we see the highlight reel, the successes, and we celebrate. Name your favorite celebrity, icon, whoever. You always see the successes, but no one really talks about what it took to get there. Sometimes it could be shame. Sometimes it could be not wanting to relive the past. But I think a lot of times people forget before you get there, you're always failing forward and you're always trying to pivot to eventually land in the spot that you want. So today, I would love for us to discuss the dark times required in order to get to the light. So thank you so much for coming, dear.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica.
Of course. So I loved hearing your story and all the pivots that you've had in your career. I do want to first start with your decision to start your career as a lawyer, right? What motivated you? And then you also are really in tune with your emotions and how you feel. What was the event that caused you to say, you know what, I really don't like this? And let's talk about how you pivoted from that. So we'll start with why did you want to be a lawyer to start?
So I wish I could give you a really profound answer about why I wanted to be a lawyer. The truth is, I went to college in Washington, D.C. I went to Georgetown, which is well known for, being part of D.C. and having a lot of students who are political animals. I was counting myself as one of them, and I always thought I wanted a career in politics. And most of the politicians I knew were lawyers, and so it seemed like a very natural exit strategy after college. I also really didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Even after 4 years of college, I really had no idea what my career was going to be, what I would be good at. And I'd always heard the adage, oh, you can do anything you want with a law degree. And so the idea that A, let me put off the adulthood for a couple more years, and B, could offer me flexibility and still figuring out what I wanted to do were probably the biggest drivers of why I went to law school. Although ironically, I ended up working as a paralegal right after college because I thought, you know what, let me at least try this out for a year, because if it really sucks,
Yeah.
then law school is probably not for me. And I was a paralegal and I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I did at the firm. I enjoyed the friends I made. I enjoyed working with attorneys. And I thought, okay, this is good. I took my LSATs that year and confirmed a bit my decision. But one of the attorneys I worked with one day sat me down after I got into law school and said, you're a smart girl. You might want to think about doing your MBA along with your law degree, because to be honest, people say you can do whatever you want with a law degree, but that's not really true. You can be a lawyer, but you're kind of going to get stuck if you just have a law degree. An MBA will actually give you a lot more flexibility. And I thought, okay, I'll take the GMATs and see what happens. And I thankfully did well enough that I was able to get accepted in my school's joint JD MBA program. And so that, I think, was the first decision and inflection point of knowing that, yes, law could be a career that I pursued, but I didn't think it would be the permanent career. And I sort of knew that early on. I think the second thing is, when I worked as a paralegal, I saw that lawyers have interesting jobs, but at the end of the day, they're not making decisions, right? A lawyer will advise you, they will counsel you, they can tell you what you're doing right and wrong, but they can't make a decision for a client. And I realized pretty early on that at some point I wanted to be the person making the decisions, the one creating the strategy, the one executing. And I knew that that really wasn't going to be my role if I stayed in the path as a lawyer.
Yeah, got it. So I loved how you made a decision, realized, okay, maybe not the best fit, and found a way to pivot. And it wasn't like, let me just charge through this door, even though it's not a fit for me. And also, let's not waste what I've done, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about how your law degree has actually helped you in your career later on, directly or indirectly. So let's talk about also, you're really good and you really understand the importance of investing in yourself. And I think growing up in Asian households, right, it's more like save, 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 don't waste money, you don't need that. But you really understood the importance of investing in your mind, in your skill set, especially when you were at your lowest point. So there was the few chapters in your life that you had to pivot and you realized, okay, it's not for me. I need to reinvest in myself. You want to talk us through at your darkest moments how it felt? And like, when sometimes you're in a very dark moment, it's really hard to pull yourself up. So what forced you to pull yourself up? And then what were the steps you took to invest into yourself?
So I realized at one point that the thing that, ironically, I'm using that word a lot, but more so than sadness or desperation, the thing that motivates me most is boredom. I cannot handle being bored. When I find myself too bored, that's when I realize I need to make a change. And so I was working a in-house counsel role, which was perfectly lovely. The people were nice. The work was not super challenging, but it was enough to keep me fulfilled. It paid me decently, but I was just so bored. Every day I'd come to work and dread that I have to be there for 8 hours, just bored out of my skull, feeling under challenged, feeling underutilized, and feeling like, is this really all there is? Why did I go through all this? Why did I get these degrees? Why did I go through my career ups and downs? Why did I leave big law? Why did I make all these decisions if this is what it's leading me to? Like, this is completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I had no idea how to get out of it.
Mm.
And so I'd been trying to do the same thing over and over, which is tap into my network, right? Go to random events, talk to recruiters, and none of it was working. I would get the same responses of, you seem really smart, you seem charismatic and personable, seems like you could do a wide variety of things. I'm happy to introduce you to whoever and see, just keep networking. It'll get better. Eventually you'll just make the match that leads to a new job and you'll be happy. And I kept doing that for years, probably 2 or 3 years, and it just wasn't having the results. And finally, it just took I think a jolt of saying, the definition of insanity is, right, it's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I realized one day, sitting in this very gloomy interior office with no windows on a gross rainy day like this one, I can't keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
If I'm actually going to get out of this rut, I've got to do something different. And so I just thought, if I were an alien new to this country, or if I new to this planet, right, or if I were in a totally different country or city where I didn't know anyone, how would I get started? And I thought, you know what, I'd probably look for a class or a coaching program that would help me get from A to B. And that's what I did, right? I immediately went online and just searched for, career coaching for career transitions, or, coaching program for people who want to make a career transition. And I looked at a few programs. The one that resonated most with me, I ended up emailing them, talking to them. I liked them. I signed up, and the rest is history. Yeah. It really was. And it wasn't, for me at the time, the price tag wasn't cheap. And that almost convinced me a little more that it was worth it, right? It's one of those things. There's certain things that, like sushi and bikini waxes, like, you don't want them to be too cheap, yeah. Right? You want them to be slightly more than you want to pay for them. That's right. How you know what you're getting is good quality.
Right.
So same, it was more than I thought I wanted to pay, more than I thought I could afford, but I had the money in my savings. And it took a while, to your point, having that Asian upbringing of like, don't waste money, don't be frivolous, save your money. You never know when you need it for a rainy day. And it took a little while for me to get over that internal programming of, okay, this is a worthwhile spend of money. It's not, my roof isn't leaking or my car doesn't need to be fixed. It's not like a true emergency, but it felt like something really, really necessary in order for me to get over the hump that I was in. And I won't lie, I did call my mom and kind of almost de facto ask her permission, even though it was my money. And I was well into my 30s. I still thought there was still part of me that needed that validation of like, okay, no, this really is okay. And the only person who could really give it to me was my mom. And to her credit, she said, you know what, you've been stuck for a while. I think it's a good idea. At the end of the day, you learn something, you can get to where you want to be and it makes you happy. That's what money is for. Mm-hmm. And so I spent the money, and I was so happy I did. The coaching program felt almost too good to be true, where they said, really, in 180 days. 90 days. It's 3 months. It's a 3-month program. In those 90 days, within 90 days, like 85% of the people who take this class or take this program, have a new job. And I thought, that's ridiculous. But like, I'm going to hold these people to it, because
Yeah.
if 90 days, I don't have a job, like they'll be held to pay. And I think it was 75 days, I got the offer for the current job that I'm in. And so I, absolutely, if anyone asks me now, was it money well spent? I can only say yes, absolutely. Had I known where it led me, I probably would have paid even twice what I paid. But and I still keep in touch with the career coach from that program. I still keep in touch with some of the alumni from that program. So it's benefited me in ways far beyond just the job I have right now. But but I would say I think it's a success story. But I think it's not just investing in yourself once. That was the other thing for me, right? Again, coming from Asian household, you really drilled into the value of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't just investing in myself once when I wrote the check. It was investing in myself every single day I did the program, and making sure that, okay, if they gave me an exercise, I did the exercise, and I didn't just do it slapdash 30 minutes before our call. I really thought about it. I spent the time. I made the effort, right? If, friends were having a happy hour, but I had to do this worksheet, I did the worksheet, right? I was a sacrifice of both my free time, my effort, my energy, and it also required me to really look inside and be honest with myself about what are the things I always said I wanted to do, and what are the things that I actually can do, right? Yes, you're always told, hey, you can do anything, you're smart, you're capable. But could I actually? If I turn around and said, I want to be a fintech investment banker, could I have actually accomplished that? Most probably not, right? And it's one thing to have the fantasy of, okay, well, I don't really want to do that, so it doesn't matter. But you have to confront that in yourself too, of some doors might be closed to you at this point in your career. And having the courage to face that was not easy, but I'm really, really glad I went through the exercise.
I love it. I think those who go through coaching and have experienced it, right, understand that it is absolutely an investment versus an expense. I always explain it as everything that you pay money into, it's either you see as an expense, it's a one-time spend, it goes down the drain, right? Or it's going to be an investment where it's actually growing your top line, your revenue. So I think, I don't mean a blanket statement, but I just seen from even an Asian culture that I was raised, when you're so focused on the expense, right, you can only decrease expenses to a certain point where like you literally can't live, right? Why don't you focus on how do you grow the top line, which is your revenue? And you're seeing like the American mindset is how do you grow the top line, right? Grow the top line, to your point, when you're stuck and you're doing the same things over and over again, whatever has worked for you in the past that's given you success, you can't keep doing that to break to the next level, right? And that's what any like coaching program, training, whatever it may be, the ones that do it well, they just give you the mindset or the exercises and the tools to say, how do you break to the next level? That's kind of the power of it. And I would say, I know you probably learned so much from that coaching program, but if you had to think about like top 2 things that you wake up every day thinking about or doing from what you've learned, what would it be?
So number one, I really give credit to my coach, Kevin, for helping with this, is understand that most people can't do what you do. And I'm using that for me, but like identify your core competency, identify what you think is the best universal skill set you bring to whatever career you're going to have, and realize that most people can't do that, right? When my coach explained to me, when I described in my career what I thought I could do, what I really knew I was capable of, he's like, you're an executor. So do you know how many people can't execute? Like for shit. Like they're smart people, they're motivated, they're ambitious, but they cannot do. They'll talk about doing, but they can't do. And once that light switch turned on, I was like, oh my God. And I looked back at 1,000 examples of my past jobs where I was like, you're 100% right. None of those people actually executed. They talked a big game, but none of them actually put their foot on the gas pedal and moved things forward.
Yeah.
And that was such a key part of my pitch when I was then went out on my second final networking binge and talked about what skill set I was bringing to really convince the guy who's now my boss that, okay, this is a person that I want to take a chance on and invest in. And I think the second thing I learned, which is equally valuable, is don't rely on other people to do things for you, right? You can meet, especially in the networking, looking for a job process, you can meet the best, most well-intentioned people in the world. They're all busy. They've all got other stuff going on, right? Like, take your destiny into your own hands. No one's gonna be mad about it, right? I met someone who told me, "Oh yeah, you're great. I think you're wonderful. Like, I'm going to introduce you to person A and person 2 and person C and person D." And I thought, okay, great. And I waited, a week, 10 days for him to make those intros. And I thought, oh, should I follow up? When should I be doing this? When should I be asking him? I don't want to be too pushy. And a week later, when I was talking to my coach, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just waiting for so and so to make the intros. He's like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, go, like, you have these people's names, go on LinkedIn, talk to them yourself. Like, just say, oh, so and so mentioned I should come talk to you. That guy's not going to be mad. You described him. He sounds like a guy with a million things going on. He's kind of spaz. So I guarantee you, he is not going to be mad that you reached out to people he already named to you and just kind of push things along for yourself. No chance in hell. It's like, if that guy is mad, I will pay you like $100,000. I was like, okay, sure. And of course, he was completely right. The guy wasn't mad. And one of those guys is my current boss. So I think those are the big two lessons, right? Really be confident. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but be confident in your skill set and know that most people can't do that thing. And so you're not out there in a world competition where everyone's just like you or better than you. That was something that I had really internalized that I think was very wrong. I see that now in retrospect, but I really internalized it at the time. And obviously it was a product of my own low self-esteem. And two, you've got to be the movement maker in your own life. That's the only way you're going to move things forward.
Could not be more spot on. You actually hinted on a separate episode I'm going to do on career changes, because I mean, especially after COVID, you're seeing more and more people waking up, right? And the thing I always tell all people I coach, I start with a very simple thing. It's a SWOT analysis, right? It's your strengths, it's your weaknesses. The opportunities are the things that come easy to you. Like, it's just you flow. Like, it's so hard for people to do, but for some reason it's like a breeze for you. And your threats are things that waste your time, things that you hate doing. It takes you 3 times of the time of other people to do it. And I say, find your strengths, find the opportunities, the things that you're really good at, right? And the opportunity, things that you enjoy doing, that you go in flow, and you find a job or a role or a company you want to start that maximizes those two and minimize your weaknesses and what drains your energy. You know why? The biggest lie I've been told when I started my analyst class was, work on your weaknesses. You know why that's a lie? You're born, to your point, a certain way. You're born with a certain DNA, certain gifts, right? You are not told to dull that shine. You're told to go all in on that shine. So when you're working on your weaknesses to go, make it, say you're like, for example, for me, math is not my skill set. That's not my strongest skill set. Okay. Let's talk about, like, let's talk about science. I hated physics, right? I was probably a -5 relative to everyone else. All the time and energy I would spend trying to get good at physics, I could have been crushing it in relationships, crushing in finance, like all that wasted time. It's like, you would never tell Kobe Bryant to go play golf. And you would never tell Tiger Woods to go play basketball, right? They just hone into their skill set. So I could not agree more. And I think it's a product of, I appreciate you being honest about, like, oh, I wasn't the most confident. But why was that? It was probably because the world and the systems that you worked in told you, oh, you're not good at this, you should work on that. Oh, you're not good at that, versus, hey, you're excellent at this, keep doing this. I'm going to find someone on the team who's excellent at that, and we're going to match make you, versus forcing you to somehow find the middle ground. So I love how your coach kind of got you that point, and the point about, like, competition and people being busy. Here's the thing. When you take the first step, like you went to the networking event, right? There's so many forces out there, seen and unseen, whether you're spiritual or not. There's forces that you cannot see with your eyes that are real, trying to help you, right? Your job is to trust that. And listen, some people are all talk, and you're going to meet tons of those, the networking events, right? You and I don't have a shortage of those. Yeah. But you still have to take the action and follow up and do it, right? Because to your point, the best angels in my life, like humans that inform angel forms, they had nothing to gain from helping me, but like literally nothing, but they're the reason why I am where I am today. Right. And then that's how you're able to give back to them in whatever way. So I love
1,000%,
that.
or pay it forward, right? If you can't give back to them, right? The
Correct.
people who don't need your help and probably will never take your help because they think, it was just my pleasure to pay it forward to someone in a new generation, right?
Yes.
You then take it and pay it forward to the next generation, right? That's why I try to spend a good amount of time at my firm, right? Doing mentoring, doing interviews for our analyst classes, doing diversity, doing the women's initiative, making sure that you're creating space and opening doors and making the process a little bit easier for the people who come after you, right? Because that's really, I think, the best thing you can do. The best way I think I can pay back the people who helped me, because
Yes.
they wanted, they wanted to see someone who's young and diverse and ambitious succeed, is to pave the way for the next generation to help them do the same thing.
Yep. 100%. Let's talk about finding a support system or investing in the relationships that are actually genuinely want you to thrive and succeed, right? So let's talk about ways that you kind of filter through to say like, hey, this is someone that I want to really invest my time into. This is maybe not so much. I know you're also very in tune with your gut feeling and your emotions. So talk to me the logical side, the emotional side. How do you filter?
So it took me a long time. I think it's a great question. It took me a long, long time to develop that filter. Certainly in my younger years, I threw a lot of good effort. I threw a lot of good after bad, right? I put in effort and I worked to develop relationships that I later realized were never going to materialize into real help or support.
Right.
And often they were even people who I thought, I kind of later realized had more nefarious or not as honorable intentions towards me as I originally thought.
Mhm.
I also realized that this realization took a long time to come, but if you see someone, if someone presents themselves to you in your life who seems to have two agendas, that's not a person you should invest time in.
Correct.
Right. And I use the classic example of, if a guy is hitting on you but also trying to offer you professional help, run the F away.
Right.
That's never going to end well. You're never going to get the help that
Right.
you want.
Right.
The lower agenda, and look, romance, love, dating is a wonderful purpose, but when you have two conflicting agendas, that lower, more base agenda is always going to win.
Yep.
And so it took me a long time to learn that lesson, and I wasted a lot of time kind of trying to work to develop relationships with older, more successful people who I thought could help me, and turned out had a more base agenda.
Mhm.
I think the number one way to tell who's investing in you is if that person's investing in you first, right? When you see someone kind of consistently showing up to help you and say, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make you successful? What can I do to help you, to push you along? And sometimes challenging you, especially sometimes when you didn't ask for it, but challenging you in a way that, when you think about it, is actually valid. Those are the people worth investing in yourself, right? Those are the people that then I turn around and I say, what can I do to help you? How can I, utilize my network to make your life better? What can I do without you even asking me to do something for you that I think you're going to appreciate, right? And so I'm very, very lucky right now at my current job to have a very, very close knit, my immediate professional team that I work with. We're all professionally very close, and I'm personally close to several of my peers, and I'm incredibly lucky, I think, in that regard. Some of it was, to your point, some of it's luck, but I think some of it, to your earlier point, was the energy I was putting out and the energy I was getting back from them, which was good people who didn't see me as a threat, wanted me to succeed, and wanted to be a part of that success.
Yeah.
And once you feel that genuinely from someone else, you'll be the exact same way. And I think that's just, and then those relationships, they're like Jenga blocks, right? They kind of continue to build and continue, or Lego blocks, right? They continue to build and they create a more solid structure, so that, and then it makes it that much easier to recognize the next person who comes in and has that same intention, right? Once you, you only need one to start. And once you recognize that, and once you understand and receive that energy, it keeps building on itself, I think.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I'm very happy for you that you finally found like that home in a workplace. Some common feedback I've gotten, or like, advice I've gotten earlier in my career was, oh, Jess, like, you're a woman, you're a minority. You should talk to this, senior woman, or you talk to this senior minority woman, right? Or oh, just something, and it is science and psychology that oftentimes you relate to and you gravitate towards people. You want to help people who look and feel like you, right? But you and I talked about this, not always the case, right? So I would say stop worrying about people's titles, stop worrying about people like what their skin color looks like, stop worrying about their gender. You will tell, like you said, with your intuition and your gut, whether someone has genuine intentions to help you. And you and I have been to more than enough women networking events where a lot of the women, senior women, do things for talk and it's for show and there's no follow through. Meanwhile, there's women who are our peers or even people who are, younger than us in age who go above and beyond to help. And that's where we reciprocate the energy. So I think advice of like, oh, schmooze your way with the people who are senior, schmooze your way with people who look like you, that is never a winning strategy. You got to go with how your gut feels around that person.
Yeah.
I've only met genuine people and maintained those relationships when I've trusted my gut. And every time I didn't trust it and said, they didn't mean that, it was just a bad day, may have misreading it, I've always gotten burned. So it's always going back to how you feel around that person.
And I would definitely agree with you. I would amend that advice slightly and say,
Yeah.
if you're offered a connection, take it, right? If someone says, oh, let me connect you to so-and-so senior person at whatever company, let me connect you to this very well-regarded Asian American who I think would be interested in talking to you, always say yes, always take the invitation.
Yes.
But then to your point, that only gets you so far, right? That gets you in the door. But once you're in the meeting, to your point, rely on your gut. How is this person reacting to you? Are they just parroting what they think, what they think you think they want them to say? Are they just talking about themselves and their own accomplishments and not asking about you? Or are they genuinely interested in you, what you want to do, and how they can be of service to you, essentially, right?
100%.
And it's really the latter person that is going to be worth anything in your life, I think.
100%. And like you said, and I'm echoing because it's so important, pay it forward.
Yep.
It's how you're going to create more goodness in any industry. You got to pay it forward. And I really want to talk about, we touched about it earlier, but when you're in the thick of it and you're going towards a goal, there'll be times when you're feeling bad and you're feeling shitty and you feel like you're going nowhere and you're taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, right? But as we've talked about, you need those dark times in order to get to the light time. And the fact that you're, going through it does not mean you're not getting towards it, right? So you want to share either some anecdotes, some stories, or, mindsets that kind of got you through the darkness to where you are now.
Sure. It's a heavy topic, but it's a really important topic because you and I were talking about this before, but so many times you see people on these podcasts or doing interviews and they just talk about, oh, I just kept winning, right? I did this and then I won that award and then I was 40 under 40 and then I was, chairman of the board of this and blah, blah, blah. And you think, oh my God, what's wrong with me? That stuff isn't coming easily for me. That I don't have that same flow as this person. I'll never be as good as this person, right? You live in this, especially when you're in New York, you can fall into this constant cycle of comparing yourself to whoever's in the paper or who's on the news or who's on Instagram, and it can just wear you down so quickly. Yes. So, and I've been there myself, right? When I've not felt settled in my career, when I've not felt settled in my personal life, you just can sink into this hole of comparing yourself against other people and what they've accomplished or what they have and what they seem to be doing. Even if you know that 50% of it is bullshit, you can still, if you don't have it, it's so easy to fall into that trap. I would say the biggest thing for me was having that mental image of where I want it to be, of knowing, okay, maybe it wasn't, by this age, I'm going to have this outcome, but it was this is what I want in my career, right? This is where I want to be. And so if I'm at least taking a step in that direction, right? Like, okay, I was an abject failure as a law firm lawyer, but now I get to move to a startup company, which, okay, if my goal was always to not practice law and to be on the corporate side and be a decision maker, becoming like working in a startup, being an in-house attorney there, that gets me a little closer to that goal, right? Pays me a lot less, and maybe I'll get less respect than when I was at a white shoe law firm, but at least I'm getting closer to my goal, right? Again, moving from that to doing strategy consulting. All right, I'm shedding the legal side. I'm getting to work on a new skill set. Okay, maybe it's not a full-time job and maybe it's just a contract gig, but it's getting me closer to my goal, right? Seeing everything, even when I wasn't where I wanted to be, feeling at least taking an honest look and saying, I do think that this step is getting me closer to my goal, was what was able to get me through that and keep me motivated to keep going and to keep putting myself out there, to keep networking, to keep working towards what I was trying to work towards. And I think once I was in a role that I really couldn't say to myself, okay, this is getting me towards my goal, that's when I made the change. That's when I was like, I need to do something different now.
Yes.
And so, and that can be, and I will say that I didn't actually know what my goal was. I didn't know that, okay, that means I'm going to be working in the exact group I'm working in, doing the exact job I'm doing. Like that I was never that specific.
Yeah.
My goal was much more amorphous than that. It was literally just work on the business side, be a decision maker, not be an actively practicing lawyer.
Right.
Those are my kind of 3 tenets that I had in my head. And as long as I could justify that I was going that way, I felt more okay about not being where I wanted to be at the exact moment.
Right. Because every step eventually got you there. And I
Yeah.
feel in that story too, sometimes people forget like contrast or getting what you don't want or not being where you want to be is good. It sounds crazy to say, but when you're around colleagues or bosses who are not supportive and who are like, don't do anything, right? And just sit on their ass and get paid, it reminds you how you want to be when you're in their seat and how you want to show up, right?
Yep.
When you are working like a dog and you don't see daylight, you literally like go to work, go to bed, like that's your lifestyle. And you're asking yourself, why the hell what's the point of all this? I guarantee you when you look back, you realize, oh my God, how much I've learned at those dark times, so that now, 5 years later, it's like this for you. It's like this for you to review any deck, anything that comes up, like it's like this for you because you put in the work. So I think there are a lot of times like earlier in my career, I'm like, oh my God, like I did not sign up for this. I'm in asset management, I'm PE. Why am I working banking hours? I remember this specifically, like this is wild, right? And then like, why am I learning about CLOs or why am I learning about this whole new asset class I don't care about? And I'm like, oh, when you get into the next role that you're selling the CLO and the products, like, oh, that's why I had to go through that. So I always say,
I knew about that. Exactly.
Right? Even like, for example, like when I was doing sub docs, I was like, guys, I am not a lawyer. I should not be qualified to be reviewing all this shit, right? Now it's like, okay, a breeze. I can do it on my own now. So I just feel contrast or doing something that maybe you didn't sign up for, it will never make sense in the minute. But I promise you, like your point, like you hate being bored. I'm the same way. If you're learning and you're learning within the realm of the area you want to go to, you're not taking steps back. Even if it feels like you're buried and you're drowning, that's where you're being kind of like grown. It's kind of like, they always say a seed's planted. And when the seed's planted, you don't see the seed sprouting yet until time goes by. You need the water, you need the sunlight. You're the seed in the soil now. Keep going, keep hustling, and you'll get
going. I mean, I'll give you an even better example, right? It's even when you're learning about something or doing something that you really don't think you ever want to do. Right. That seed becomes planted. When I was a lawyer, I did asset-backed finance and I was looking at credit agreements all day. And I was like, I hate this so much.
Yeah.
I cannot think of anything worse. Now, X number of years later, I run a lending business.
Yeah.
And I have to think about credit agreement terms and covenants all the time. And I'm like, wow, I am really glad I learned that.
Yes. I love it.
Much worse at this job if I didn't know any of that stuff.
And I guarantee you probably enjoy it more now because it's easier for you.
It's easier, and and I'm doing the functional part of it that I like, which is the business strategy, the sales. That's what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah. I love
And
it.
it took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I'm so glad that I'm here now.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I always end this with, I think, to your point about Kevin, your coach, I think every single person has a gift. And when you unlock this gift, you do serve humanity, you add value to humanity. So if I had to ask you what your gift is, what would you say that is?
I think my gift is making connections.
Mm.
I think making connections and connecting dots, I should say. I think that for me, and this is not a brag, I hope, but I think I am able to see big picture patterns and make big picture connections between seemingly unrelated events or people much more quickly than a lot of other people. And so I found that doing that has been able to give me a lot of credibility in a lot of people's eyes and convince people that I'm smart and that I'm capable. And then I think making connections with people is the thing I really love to do, right? I love nothing more than introducing two of my friends to each other because I think they'll really get along, or introducing someone, for a job opportunity that they'd be good at, and where, I think the person who's the hiring manager could really get a lot of value from the person I'm introducing them to, or like setting up two friends, be like, oh, like, I think you guys would like each other, like you should date. Like that gives me such joy and makes me feel like I'm really having an impact in the world, and I'm putting a little good in the world every time I do that, right? Because it's something that I truly, you know, do I get any benefit out of it? Not really. Maybe if I successfully set up a couple one day, I'll get some bragging rights. But other than that, it really is about how can I improve the lives of people around me, and how can I put a little good into this world in a way that doesn't really benefit me.
Yeah. And I love that. And I know directly you may not see the benefit, but it's all karma. It's all a cycle. We're all connected. And just like
1000%.
someone does that for you, right? And you're like, wait, that's so random. You're trying to set me up with XYZ ABC. So I'm super happy for you. Thank you again. And I'll see you soon, dear.